Hello and welcome to Crunch Time Live. It's Week 10 edition. I'm Santiago Casanova here with Matt Ward. How are you?
Good man, good man. I'm so happy to be back. I missed a couple episodes, was on vacation, under the weather one of the weeks. So yeah, it's good to be back, man.
Back to normal, finally.
Yeah, back to normal.
All right, well, let's just get right into it with some player news, player injuries. What do you have for me?
I mean, I think one of the biggest ones of the day, and it seems like he's not going to play, is Kyler Murray with his hamstring. They said they will test him before the game, but if there's any uncertainty at all, he won't participate. And there's lots of uncertainty. And as far as the beat reporters are concerned in Arizona, he is an inactive already for this contest.
All right, yeah, that's huge. That is huge. He was questionable coming in, unlikely to play, and huge fantasy implications. Does that change whether you were starting another Cardinal or not?
A little bit, yes. I think Nuke is obviously the safest option, as he's proven throughout his entire career to be legitimately QB
Yeah,
proof. In his years in Houston, dating all the way back. The one that I would be the most worried about, because these touches have been manufactured and a bit of rapport being built, would be Rondale Moore, as far as pass catchers are concerned, for sure. It also gives a little bit of a boost to James Conner, and not necessarily Benjamin, unless it's more of a 50-50 split. But definitely a little bit of a boost to James Conner just on volume alone.
right. Yeah. Another. Do you have any other big
Yeah, I
news?
mean, kind of a similar scenario, to be honest, and the same situation where Ezekiel Elliott's going to test his knee before practice this week. But as far as the beats are concerned, and if there's any kind of cautiousness towards how that knee is feeling, he will just be held out. The coaching staff has essentially prepared the offense without Ezekiel Elliott this week, and are going to operate as if he is not able to play any snaps. So in a situation like that, too, if even if it is 100% certainty and he has the greatest pregame warm-up of his life, I think the coaching staff has kind of already pushed their chips towards the middle, where they don't have a choice. The game plan is tailor-made to not necessarily give him the opportunity share that he needs to be fantasy relevant.
Good point. Good point. Now through Schefter, here are the players that are questionable but expected to play still. So pay attention. It's Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Elijah Mitchell, Kyle Juszczyk, Debo Samuel, Jarvis Landry, and Ryan Tannehill is also expected to play. Evan Engram, and I had to include him. T.J. Watt is back.
Oh, that's huge. And that's
Yeah,
huge for a lot of things that I think people are kind of ignoring about, how Andy Dalton's been performing a little bit with a clean pocket, which he might not be afforded as many of these against the Steelers with TJ Watt back. And obviously you saw the Ravens defense last week kind of wreak havoc on him. Interesting for Jarvis Landry to finally be back in that offense as well, with those names. Other
yep,
than that, like all of the previously other guys, they're kind of guys in that scenario that if they are healthy, you got to start your Jonathan Taylors, your Aaron Joneses. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, you just gotta get confirmed that it is that they are
Yeah,
active, right?
absolutely.
So yeah, that's that's that.
Yeah, Matt Stafford as well.
Hmm.
Concussion protocol. He's believed to be a long shot to play, per Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero. He's not ruled out yet, but one of those guys, again, that the beat reporters in the offense are essentially functioning as if he is already ruled inactive. And a
That's
couple other
interesting.
inactive guys today
Yep.
are Kyle Rudolph, Russell Gage. I guess that game is already playing.
Yep.
We've got some pretty interesting defensive inactives. Um, Brandon Cook's expected to play. Other
Right.
than that, that's essentially it. The big ones are the two quarterbacks for sure.
Indeed. Um, now that does it for player news this week. Let's talk about some of those sleepers and busts this week. I know you worked really hard on those, so give it to me. Well, who's your
Yeah,
sleeper
I've
this
always
week?
I've always got these lined up. I mean, we'll start right from the top. Me and Boyd took over this one this week. He covered the quarterbacks, tight ends, and I got running backs and wide receivers. So I mean, running back right off the top, it's Jamal Williams for me. There's just very few quote unquote backup running backs in fantasy football that have like legitimate RB1 upside, even when the starter is healthy, and Jamal Williams fits that bill. The Lions have kind of just bubble wrapped DeAndre Swift, despite him clearing injury reports and practicing in full and then being limited practice again. And instead, the team's just allowed Jamal Williams to shoulder a workhorse role. He had 24 rushing attempts for 81 yards on a 61% snap share last week. Swift, on the other hand, played just 10 snaps and had 2 carries, more targets than Jamal. So they'll still use him in the pass game a little bit. But it appears that the Lions are just content with using their bruising veteran to plow through opposing defenses right now. And it makes sense. Like, they're not going to run DeAndre Swift out in a losing season when he's as young as he is. He's still on a rookie contract for 2 more years. They're
Right.
expected to bring in their franchise quarterback next season. So why not give your franchise quarterback a litany and an array of healthy weapons, rather than guys that, beat their bodies up, in a losing season. So Williams brings a high volume role into a Week 10 road matchup against the Bears, who have allowed 147.2 rushing yards per game to their opponents this season. That's 30th overall. They rank fourth best in true matchup rank, conceding 24.6 points per game, which is 29.4% over the expected average in points over average. So, I mean, Williams is a serviceable RB2 on any given Sunday, but today he legitimately has RB1 upside, top 12.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And if you've been following him since last season, I'm a big Jamal Williams guy, and I
You
drafted him a
you
lot,
should
and
be.
it has paid off. It has paid off. He's one of those quote unquote forgotten backups that are actually good when the starter's not there. So him and vintage Gio Bernard,
Yeah, well, I mean,
both
Jamal's
of special
averaging
place in my high.
14.7 points per game this season, which is RB6, tied for RB16 right now.
Right.
And people kind of forget, even in the 4 weeks where Swift was healthy and having like good games, Jamal was still ahead of him in points per game because of that touchdown upside.
Yeah.
Because as
Yeah.
soon as they get inside of the five, it was literally
They
just
just
like
switch.
three
Yep.
Jamal Williams carries. Yeah, so for sure, he's certainly serviceable, and Bears defense is a very good matchup for him because it's rushing production specifically.
Exactly. So that's gonna be a very interesting thing to watch. We'll be back with more sleepers and busts later. Let's get to some questions first. We have Toronto Dave with down bad
Oh my
running
god,
back, Melvin Gordon, Latavius Murray, uh, Hilliard, Burkhead, or Michelle. Denver's running back matchup is good. Outside tough, but I'm still might have to start him. Yeah, it's not pretty.
yeah.
It's like because you gotta start two as well.
I
PPR.
mean that's where it's not. This might even be like kind of a crazy theory, but in a position like this, I'm not looking. I kind of want to lock down the backfield that is just going to score the most points. I would almost be willing to start both Melvin and Latavius just for the
Mm,
guarantee of their whoever has it. I'll take that and the
true.
plus,
True.
right? Because I think one of those two guys for sure outscores the other three options, right? And then Michelle has kind of been behind Spiller now. Burkhead is nothing. Like Damian Pierce is as real as it gets. And Hilliard, you need Henry to get hurt, or it's really not going to happen. Maybe one big play is a potential. So
Yeah, yeah, he's a one play guy. However, like you were saying on locking down the Denver running backs, they're facing the Titans, who are minus 15 on points over average. They like Dave said, it's a tough matchup. So
yeah,
it's
it,
not pretty.
it's
Definitely it's not pretty.
no, absolutely. I just don't like. I mean, yeah, I don't think you're going to see much work out of the other three guys at all. Where
True.
at least you're talking about a committee that, if the committee combines for, and I know it's a super low ceiling, but if the committee combines for 12 points, then I'll take the 12 points over the, two from Burkhead, the potentially none from Michelle. Now that Isaiah
True.
Spiller is getting
True.
carries, and so that's kind of that's really my only theory. And when you're playing such low ceilings in the first place, I kind of just want the points.
That's a good point. I would argue, however, well, this one's tough because the Titans are much better at defending the rushing running back than the receiving running back, and that receiving running back would be Melvin Gordon. I would argue start Melvin Gordon and then go for upside, starting someone like Hilliard that has the
Hilliard.
potential. So if you want to go for ceiling, I would go Gordon and Hilliard. If you just want to lock down a backfield, even though they are in a bad matchup, but you just want to secure points when you're this down bad, you gotta secure points. you I agree with you that it's Melvin Gordon and Latavius Murray, especially in PPR. I'm liking that Gordon Hilliard combo, but
Yeah, and I
agree with
kind
you.
of that's a little bit of that DFS strategy too, where you like plug in a backup quarterback because if the starter were to go down, nobody has them in their
Right,
lineup, and
right,
boom,
for
there's
sure.
yeah. So I get that. Yeah, the highest upside play I think is Gordon Hilliard. But again, yeah,
Yeah, if you need one of the points, why not just secure in a bad week, Gordon Latavius, right?
agree.
All right. So there you go, Dave. Good luck this week, and hopefully we make the right decision. Uh, Morning, Charles. Happy week 10. Season is winding down.
Yeah,
Week
it's
10,
wild that it's
getting those
been
double digits is it's
like
interesting.
snap.
Oh, this is a thing right
Yeah,
before
I like
Sunday,
Herbert
Jamal.
today too
Yep. All right,
against Detroit. I
Charles
mean,
got a
obviously.
question. Full PPR currently have MVS in after a disappointing performance last week. Yep. He was the sleeper as well. Too bad. Semi
Mm.
viable options are Dodson, Hines, Jarvis, or Muth.
Move. Um, you know what? Actually, full PPR here. I might. Frymuth is definitely sit against the Saints. I mean, the
Mm,
Saints are the a ridiculous gap between the worst possible matchup for tight ends and then the Saints being the
yep.
worst possible
Yep.
matchup for tight. They're that good. They're really that good. And everybody was excited about likely scoring a touchdown, but he had 7 targets, 1 catch for 26 yards. Like if he doesn't have a touchdown there, you're yeah. But so I might take Jarvis in his first game back. That's obviously the most risky play. MVS
Yep.
is probably the biggest upside. I mean, he's
Right.
always capable of 2 or 3 catches for 110 yards. Like always. So
And Hardman is
Jacksonville's a
out.
good matchup. Hardman is, yep, for sure. Oh, that
Hardman is
was
out.
one that we missed. Hardman's
Good
confirmed out.
matchup. Not as good as Pittsburgh, but still a good matchup for wide
That's
receivers.
why I was feeling pretty decent about Jarvis. Jarvis over the other guys, Hines or Dotson and Muth, but I think I'm probably just sticking with MVS here.
The only thing I'm thinking about is yes, MVS can get you the big plays. He can also get you like nothing. And Jarvis might be a more solid play in PPR if he's getting those targets against a bad defense. You're risking him being like the odd man out because he's just the first game coming back. But in PPR, I do like that upside of just getting absolutely peppered with targets.
Yeah, I think
You're the
it's
Saints guy, so you let me know.
yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly where my head went right away. I also don't think Jarvis is coming back after such a long layoff unless he's genuinely ready to be inserted into the lineup. I was just at the Saints game in New Orleans. Like they need receiving help more than anything. It took them almost 2 quarters to even figure out how to, manufacture touches for Chris Olave. So Jarvis in that scheme and the way that they've been allocating targets and upping the passing volume because they kind of need to, I could see a ceiling of 8 targets with a total depth of target of 2 yards the entire game, and which would turn into 6 receptions, 40 yards. Yeah, I genuinely do think that that's Jarvis's projections for this week.
Right. I think you flipped me a little bit. I was more on an MVS, but the full PPR, I think Jarvis has that upside
Yeah,
to
that's
just get you a ton of points.
yep. I agree. I do think he's especially against Pittsburgh here. It's just such a good matchup.
Right, right. If it was a worse matchup, I think Pittsburgh is just like number one matchup for wide receivers. No, it's not, but close. Might be like top three. So
Indeed.
yeah, yeah. In that case, it's Jarvis time. So good luck, Charles. Hopefully that's the right decision. Big Will. Good morning. How are you? Doing all right. A little
Great,
tired,
my friend. Great.
but it is Sunday, so it's football time. No football question yet. Just wanted to say good morning. Hey, good morning to
Oh,
you too.
much love, brother.
Now Ryan Mullen says, with Murray out, is Trevor Lawrence still the best option in a league that gives a point per completion? Other options are Rodgers and Goff. Funny you should mention Rodgers and Lawrence, because as Matt will tell you later in full detail, Lawrence is the Brodo sleeper of the week, and Rodgers is the Brodo bust of the week for quarterback.
Facts.
Goff is just Goff. So I'm gonna let you take it away.
Yeah, Goff is just Goff. And knowing that Kyler is out, how good of a matchup and game script Lawrence has in front of him with that Kansas City offense. Yeah, he's definitely looked a little bit up and down. He hit a sophomore slump after having a really hot start to the season, and now he's kind of starting to get that confidence back. It's part of the reason why ETN hasn't been seeing many checkdowns is because Lawrence is airing the ball out and he's having some success with it against Kansas City, where that team, even though the Jaguars have like a decent defense on paper and they only allow 19 points per game and 240 passing yards or what have you, Patrick Mahomes isn't that. He's going to put up more than that against that defense. And Trevor Lawrence is going to play keep up. He's going to play keep up in a high volume passing offense that is having success again. Christian Kirk looks good. Evan Ingram has been a top 12 tight end this season, surprisingly. So, yeah, I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence is not just the best option, but somebody, knowing what Kyler's injury is, somebody I would keep on my offense for further down the road as well.
Hmm. Good point. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, Trevor Lawrence is still the best option out of those three. So there you go, Ryan. Good luck. Gio was a five. Yes, I miss Gio in my lineups. Also, assuming no Murray, still with Ryan, is Rondell Moore still to play? Other options are Gallup or Pierce. Ooh.
I'm assuming that's Alec Pierce because obviously you're starting
Oh,
Damian
right, right. Yeah, I was
over
about to
all
say.
of these guys. And I mean, you're not, I'm not starting Alec Pierce with that Colts offense. Jeff Saturday's first game, Sam Mellinger at quarterback,
Ashton
all of
Dolan is
that.
back.
Yeah. Oh, hey, that's true. Ashton Doolin is back. Big play, Ash. But yeah, I'm not interested in starting Pierce at all. I think you can make a decent argument, and I would feel comfortable starting Gallup over Rondell this week. And I'm the Rondell guy, and Rondell was
Exactly.
a tier
That's why I
up.
trust your decision on this.
Rondell was a tier up for me. First game of the season that he had run more routes than DeAndre Hopkins, and it turned into him getting twice as many targets as DeAndre Hopkins. Offense were just or the Cardinals offense were just looking for ways to get creative, and he's their best yards after the catch guy. He's actually one of the best yards after the catch guy in the NFL.
There you go.
So I was big on Rondale tier breaker up from being consistently outside of the top 24 to being a mid-range wide receiver to this week. That gets downgraded with no Kyler Murray. That does get
Right,
downgraded.
right.
Now, I understand that, you're going to argue low depth of target, but Hopkins can play that role off the slant just as well. And there's, rapport there with Colt McCoy. Zach Ertz probably has the
Rapport.
best, yeah, but the best pass
Yeah,
catching
yeah, yeah,
ceiling,
yeah.
honestly, out of the options, being what he is. And again, it's a little bit of an upgrade for James Conner. So I don't have an issue pivoting off to Michael Gallup. His snaps and routes and targets have been consistently going up and up. He was behind Noah Brown for like 3 games while they warmed him into the offense, and then he finally took over, and then they had the bye. So I feel pretty confident coming off a bye that Michael Gallup will, be back to his 6-7 target ceiling. And I would
Yeah,
be okay with starting him over Rondell, even in a difficult matchup against Green Bay.
and that's coming from the Rondell guy. So there you go, Ryan. Looks like Gallup is the option. So good luck. Toronto Dave says both Denver right now, both Denver running backs right now. So same thinking,
Yeah,
but the Titans
yeah.
are tough. So it was just all a
So
thought
if you
process.
want to get with that risky, somebody gets hurt and my DFS lineup blows up, I'm not mad at the Hilliard start, but Hilliard over Michelle or Burkhead for sure, just because
All
that's
right.
the game that you're playing anyway.
Yeah. Another Rondell question. So Hunt over Rondell. Now with the Kyler news, would you agree with that?
I'm not super high on Kareem Hunt this week. Actually, have him outside of my top 24 running backs this
Hmm.
week. So
That said, though.
I know, man. This is tough. I am downgrading Rondale again. Had him at wide receiver 16, downgraded to wide receiver 27 without Kyler. So it's not like I'm thinking maybe 8-9 points per game for Rondale. We're gonna go 4 for 50 type of projections that I have on him right now. Targets obviously declined from the 10 target game he had last week. Kareem Hunt is a little touchdown dependent this season, but I would have him scoring a touchdown over Rondale this week. So with that
I
said,
would agree with that. Yeah.
I think it's
So
Kareem Hunt.
I agree. Very, very
I'm
small
hurting about
margin,
this.
but
Very disappointed, and obviously I'm always high on Kyler Murray as well. But I really saw a big game for Kyler. It's such an exploitable matchup out of the slot for him.
yeah, true. Ryan says Rams or Arizona defense. Looks like both QBs are out. Buda Baker's out too.
I think I'm gonna go. I mean, so it's Wolford or McCoy, basically, is what we're saying, right? So who do
Yeah.
you? I think I would rather start a defense against Wolford, to be honest. Colt McCoy is a serviceable backup.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. So that would be the Rams, right? I'm sorry, not super brushed up on backup QBs.
Oh, they play each other.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I
yeah. They
mean. They
play each
play each
other.
other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's yeah. The Rams. So start the Arizona Cardinals defense against John
All right.
Wolford. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there you go. Uh, does the no Buddha change anything for you?
It's Byron Murphy and Isaiah Simmons are kind of the core of that defense on that side of the ball, anyway. No, I mean, like obviously Buda Baker is a menace, but with Murphy, you can switch over to play that high nickel, and obviously Isaiah Simmons can play literally absolutely every position. I'm not super concerned. It's still a super solid unit.
Right, right. All right. So there you go. Cardinals defense it is. We have another defense question coming up by a different Ryan as well. Saints or Giants D? I'm loving the Saints D here, honestly.
Against Pittsburgh, because
Yeah,
I'm the
in the
Saints fan,
rain.
and I was in the rain, in Pittsburgh,
Rain games are always
because
great for defense.
the Giants are traveling to Houston, so they're going to play in the dome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, wait. No.
Oh, they're
No,
at
they're at
MetLife.
home. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's raining too. I kind of like the Giants D against Houston here, but I also the Saints D have been very, very solid, fantasy and real life all season.
Yeah. Yeah, they have. I just when I'm doing defense analysis, everything goes out the window and I go by heart every single time, and it works.
and it, I mean, Cass's Vibalytics.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Because they have like 45% precipitation right now, 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't know what it means, but it sounds cold. And on
That's not
the
warm,
other
bro.
game, they're like in the 50s with a 1% precipitation. So that 45 precipitation is just great for defenses. Like,
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
I mean,
Pickett
especially
is
when you
already a
don't have a
turnover
good team.
machine.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, who has not
Mm.
been like when it's rain games, you usually get ground and pound with the running back, but he hasn't done anything. He has done nothing special, and the Saints he has been good this season. Like not fantastic, but they have been good. So when you can get a good defense against a very bad team in a rain game, I'm loving that. That's all the vibes I'm looking for when picking a DST.
All right, you flipped me. I love it.
I mean, I have like those are
I love it
made
too,
up
and I
reasonings
mean,
because I just go by vibes. But yeah,
not really. But you're not. I mean, those are all logical reasonings. They're narrative based, but they all make 100%
right, right,
sense.
yeah. I have no data on this.
Absolutely.
I just feel it.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean,
So
like the Saints did hold Lamar back.
right.
Kenyon Drake had a big game and all, but you know that Damian Pierce can run for 130 on anybody right now too. He did it against the Eagles, so he could do it against the Giants. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
and like
You
the
flipped
Saints
me.
are
It's the
overall like
Saints.
a super tough unit. Like in points over average, they are all like negative in all categories, right? So when you combine that with the rain and a bad team, I'm loving the Saints.
Yep, agree.
So yeah, there you go, Ryan. Dave says appreciate both your thoughts. Great stuff. Thank you, Dave. Let's keep going. Big Will is asking just a general question. How do you feel about Traylon Burks coming back now with Tannehill starting? Would you consider him over George Pickens? We just talked about
Yes.
the Steeler, right? So
I would consider Traylon Burks over George Pickens, and I would have Traylon Burks ranked ahead of George Pickens for the rest of the season as well.
oh wow, just like in general.
Barring barring any setbacks in his injury. Absolutely. No, I think Traylon Burks is going to walk into a wide receiver one role. They were a little bit conservative with his overall snaps and playing time, but they were not conservative with his target share when he was out there. I like Traylon Burks as a player over George Pickens anyway, and I think the Titans are. Mike
Right.
Vrabel literally had one of the funniest quotes I've ever heard a coach say in my entire life. They were the beat reporters were kind of questioning him about the pass game, why there's such low volume passing game, and he said, "Who the fuck are we going to throw it to?"
Oh right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. I quote tweeted that with AJ Brown maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, fire. Well, that would have been a good idea. But now that's Traylon Burks. So I feel pretty good about Traylon Burks. This matchup isn't necessarily the game where I want to start him right away, but over George Pickens against the Saints, I mean, you're talking about 6 points versus 9 points. I like Traylon Burks.
Right, yeah. It's not the most pivotal decision, but yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's a risky play. Let's just say it's a very risky play. without seeing much, and with the questionable Tannehill. Well, he is expected to play, but like injured, hindered, right? That's what I mean. So yeah, this next question is very interesting to me. So oh well, there you go, Big Will. Ryan asks, Ayuk or Palmer? Debo is back. Palmer has a very tough matchup. What are your thoughts on this? Because I
Well,
just peeped
for
the Start Sit app on the Start Sit feature on the app, and it's 50.3% towards one of those guys, and the other guy 49.7.
wow.
Yeah.
So I want to start this question off by the back. Debo being back for the 49ers does not affect Brandon Ayuk the way that people think it does. The moment that CMC came, everything, it just opened up the game for Brandon Ayuk a little bit more. I hate going back to this because it's so frustrating that he would even say this, but after Brandon Ayuk's 2 touchdown game, Kyle Shanahan was like, I think he's finally cemented himself as a part of the offense. Ridiculous that you weren't using his talents the way before and were just willing to lose games to keep him in the doghouse. But that being said, is since that game, there's the only narrative based opportunity share that I genuinely care about is Brandon Ayuk's, because every time that Kyle Shanahan has said something positive, it has been an immediate effect on his opportunity share, and every time it's something negative, an immediate negative effect. Debo doesn't affect Brandon Ayuk. The only thing that affects him is Kyle Shanahan, and Kyle Shanahan likes him
Hmm.
now. He's been seeing consistent over 8 targets a game for the last 5 games with Debo on the field, with CMC on the field in some of those contests. He's put up consistent, wide receiver 2 numbers with wide receiver 1 game in there as well. I like Brendan Ayuk all the time, and I like him against this Chargers defense. I like this matchup. I'm starting him over Palmer. Like, yeah,
That said, though, tough 49ers defense, but they haven't been tough against the wide receiver. Like on points over average, they're sixth, the sixth best, sixth easiest matchup for wide receivers. They allow on average plus 23.7%. So not really a tough matchup for wide receivers. However, I did like your argument, and Palmer just walking into a wide receiver one role does not mean he's gonna get the wide receiver one treatment, because this is just a very old discussion on targets and whatnot. He has been good, yes. He has just not been super special like he should have been, right? So
right. And I mean, he had a very good blow up game last week. But outside of that, the targets are allocated in such a interesting fashion in Los Angeles right now. It's the Austin Eckler show as the number one
yeah,
receiver without Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, and everybody else has been like, they all match each other's routes and targets. It's literally everybody's running like, say, 60 routes and they all get 4 targets, all of them, like from top to bottom, Bandy included, right? Bandy, DeAndre Carter, like everybody's getting the exact same target allocation, save for Josh Allen, or Josh Palmer's rather one good serviceable game last week. So I'm not overly interested in tied for fifth target share against a Justin Herbert's ribs are jello, man. That guy's been hurting all season, and he just doesn't look like what we know he's capable of. And maybe a product of that is not having his top 2 options. Like, you see Aaron Rodgers struggling. Like, when your best receiver is Josh Palmer, that's not a great recipe for being able to move the ball down the field. I like Brandon Ayuk. I think he's gonna, and I know because I do the FF now, some of the FF now questions in the morning. And I know Palmer is the 50.3 ahead of Brandon Ayuk.
he is.
But that said, Brennan also is ahead of him in half PPR. So we're expecting a little bit more of a consistent floor for Ayuk, and a potential to be peppered with targets for Josh
Oh
Palmer,
yeah,
but it's
he
not a
didn't give us a
guaranteed.
scoring format.
Yeah,
Just
well, there, I
realized.
just gave it back to him. So if it's half PPR, the algorithm favors Ayuk, but I favor Ayuk even in the 50.3% to PPR. I do think he's got that opportunity.
All right, so yeah, I'm trusting Mike. Sorry, Matt on this one, and
Trust
let's go
Mike
with
always,
Ayuk.
though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, looks like Ayuk over Palmer, but with the caveat that the 49ers defense is not tough on wide receivers. So there you go. Ugly flex question: Jarvis or Hines full PPR? I think we can answer this one very
Jarvis.
quick. Yeah, it's Jarvis. Yeah, 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 for sure.
Super
We were
easy.
having a debate earlier, but Jarvis just in this part, this question, Jarvis. Big Will, with the weather situation up in Buffalo with sleet and rain, should I start Jimmy G over Kirk Cousins today?
I don't hate that. Jimmy G was my streamer of the
Yeah.
week
Yeah.
on the Thursday episode, rather on the Broto
Mm,
Fantasy Thursday episode. Make sure you guys tune into that. Yeah, I
I
don't hate
agree.
that. Buffalo's defense, really poor weather, and Josh Allen, hurt or not, really poor game script. When you really think about that, like these teams aren't going to drop 30 on each other. I don't think that
Yeah.
that's
No.
happening today. I really, really don't. On the other side, obviously the Rams defense and Rams offense has not looked Super Bowl contenderish, but that also means that Jimmy G can put points up on them. And
Right.
Jimmy G's method to the reason that he's always led the leagues in yards per attempt and you know, all of these efficiency metrics is because the 49ers have 5 guys that are in the top 5 of yards after the catch for their position. Like Brandon Ayuk's in the top 5, Debo's in the top 5, CMC's in the top 5, Kittle's in the top 5. So all of these guys are just absolute yak monsters. Jimmy G doesn't have to do anything to
Right. Right.
have
Yeah.
a super 3 touchdown, 250-yard game. He literally doesn't need to do anything. So Kirk Cousins has to overcome so much to put up 20 points. And I almost honestly think I'm going to lean Jimmy G here. That might be contrary, but I think I'm leaning Jimmy.
You know what? I like it. I like it as well. So yeah, yeah, go with Jimmy G. Cause it's not like you're sitting the top guy either, right? It's just another dude.
Cousins
So
is,
yeah,
I mean, he's been a QB1, but barely. And after the
yeah,
top 6, there's been such a
right. A
disparity in
drop
points per
off.
game like we've never seen in any season, really, where that
Bro,
late
speaking
round
of
QB
QBs,
idea kind of
yeah.
didn't work out.
Speaking of QBs, if Josh Allen suited up, you
You
can't sit him,
can't.
right?
Nope, you
No, I
can't.
agree.
I mean, like, you can't. He's still, I think Josh Allen's floor injured. If he doesn't throw the ball and he wants to be productive, what does that mean? He's going to run.
Right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we have one from the guy Tim. Hunt or Pickens. We were just talking about that Saints D,
I
and
think it's
we
Hunt
also
here.
spoke on Conning Hunt.
Yeah, I think it's Hunt here, man. And I'm low key eating an L with George Pickens because I was very low on him coming into the season. The beat report's positive. Obviously good preseason, had some really great highlight plays. Chase Claypool traded away. His snaps were rising, his routes were rising, the targets were coming up, and then he's maintained the same role the entire time, and it's not led to anything overly productive. Like it just seemed like it was increasing, and it seemed like he was being put into a position to maybe even take over Deontay Johnson. And I still think there's an argument to be made that George Pickens is the most talented receiver on that roster. But until he genuinely has a 25% target share, especially in this offense, he's not really a must start player by any means.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And well, we also just spoke about on the bad weather in that game, right? So it's Hunt.
Yeah, I think it's Hunt. I think Kareem Hunt has a decent 10-point PPR floor today with touchdown upside.
We just talked about starting Josh Allen regardless, but here's a question about it, like more specifically. Is Josh Allen good for the whole game or start Jones and Jimmy G in 2 leagues? Jones, oh, me, Mac
Like
Jones?
Daniel Jones.
Oh,
Oh, could be Mac Jones too. Good point.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
tough. That one's
Either
tougher because I
way,
actually don't know.
either
I'm not
way, I
starting.
like Josh over
Yeah.
either Jones,
Well,
but Jimmy. We just talked about Jimmy, so
to go back to that Kirk Cousins Josh Allen matchup, knowing Josh Allen has that injury, I still had him ranked ahead of Cousins in this matchup. So like my cutoff for a Jimmy G start was essentially I have him at QB 13. I have Cousins at QB 14. So my cutoff is QB1 territory. I don't think Josh Allen
right,
falls outside of the top 12. I just don't think he's putting up 35 today.
right,
I don't
yeah,
think he's
exactly.
QB1 overall by any means, and can downgrade a little bit of the pass catching weapons. Like if
It was Danny
people
Dimes,
are
by the way, not Mac.
Danny Dimes. Okay,
We
okay.
just got clarification.
I do like Daniel Jones this week. I'm still going to start Josh Allen over him.
And Jimmy G versus Josh Allen. Is it still
Yeah,
Josh?
it's still Josh for sure. It's closer, but I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things
Yeah,
where I really
yeah, I
do
get
think
it.
the narrative, if he's healthy enough to play the whole game and they don't pull him, that rushing production is still attached to Josh Allen's body, and the elbow's not going to stop his legs.
For sure. I agree with that. So, yeah, there you go, Brandon. Good luck this week. Charles, there's no way we're fading D Hop if Kyler's out, right?
No, we said that at the beginning of the episode as well. He's the one receiver on that offense that I don't feel super bad about
Yeah, yeah. The
because
Rondell
he's
is a
he's
more of a fade, but
the definition of QB proof.
yeah, oh yeah, he has proven that time and time again. We have one Mostert or Wilson here, so
Jeff Wilson.
I'm
So the
assuming, yeah,
Miami backfield, yeah,
right.
I actually think it might be Jeff Wilson, man. First game in a Dolphins uniform, immediately took the same rushing opportunity share as Raheem Mostert and had a higher snap count, and that was his first game. Mike McDaniel has another piece of that San Francisco 49ers offense that he was so in love with when he was coaching there as their offensive
That's true.
coordinator.
That's true. That Mostert was
And
there as well.
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, he has another piece like that. That's so. I think that it's certainly immediately a committee, much more of a committee than we saw with Chase Edmonds. Hence why they rid themselves of their
Oh right,
only
yeah.
real mistake this offseason, right? Um, so I do think that Jeff Wilson is kind of the de facto RB1 in this offense, but it's RB1A and RB1B. It's a 50% opportunity share. Both have similar touchdown upside. Jeff Wilson does catch a few more passes and see a few more targets, at least if last week's allocation of opportunities was any indication moving forward. And I think it was, considering, again, it was his first game in the uniform for them. So I'm leaning Wilson just on the slightest margin.
All right, yeah. I trust that. I trust that analysis for sure. We have a very interesting one that I've been thinking about for a while now. So start to Pickens, Waddle, and Gallup. It's not as easy as it would seem on first impression.
Yeah, I mean, for sure it's not. Something with Wandale, he was one of my podcast choices for kind of like a deep sleeper this week, a diamond in the rough, as we like to call them. Wandale's just for better for worse. And I mean, the production certainly hasn't been there. The targets have, save for one game. But Wandale's their wide receiver one, like or outside of Saquon Barkley, I guess. But he's the Giants' wide receiver one. I think
But
that
Houston is super tough on
I,
wide receivers.
absolutely. I think that matchup is not as inviting as Gallup. Well, Gallup's got Green Bay, Pickens has the Saints. These are all really tough defensive matchups. I think with Wandale's role being what it is, I kind of like his upside with the Giants putting up big points on Houston. That's going to be a running game, though. Like Saquon's just going to have
Yeah.
150
Oh yeah.
rushing yards, and,
Oh
and
yeah.
then the clock's going to be over. And yeah, no, Lattimore's hurt, but yeah, I mean, it might be Pickens Gallup here.
Mm. Okay. Interesting. After all
If
that
not,
speech with
it's
wide receiver
Wandale and
one.
Gallup. I'm starting Gallup. That's where we can go off right off the
Okay.
top. I'm definitely
Okay.
going to start Gallup out of these two. So it's between Pickens and Wandale Robinson, and I think a little bit better of the game script in New Orleans.
Yeah, we just talked about
I
the
don't know.
rain, the
Tough weather.
defenses, and
Everything
the
about it. I don't
yeah,
like either
tough
one of these
weather.
matchups. It's really tough. I don't have any like defining analysis to choose one or the other. I guess the weather would really be the indicator here. Wando gets to play in a dome or gets to play in a bit of a better situation in MetLife against a worse defense than New Orleans. Him and Gallup.
Yeah, I have to go with Pickens and Gallup in this
I
case
don't hate it. Yeah,
because I
I'm
just
glad that
think you
you
have to go
made the
with a better
decision.
player. When in doubt, go for
Yeah,
the better player, and I think Pickens is a better player. So there you go, Steve. So good luck and thank you for your question, Steve. Um, we got that a couple times this question. Most from Wilson already answered. And here's a clarification that it was in fact Danny Dimes, not Mike Jones. We have one question from XN3 on 1C3X. Pick one running back and wide receiver. PPR Najee, Pollard, Gabe Davis, and
Pollard,
Rondell Moore.
Rondale.
Pollard and one wide receiver. So Davis or
Yeah,
Moore.
Pondale, and Pollard and Rondale.
You're going with Rondell still, uh, despite
Yes.
everything. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
He
because
is
I
the Rondell guy. So
don't feel good about Gabe Davis any week whatsoever, let alone the week where Josh Allen's playing with an elbow injury that he can't throw the ball more than 20 yards, and Gabe Davis can't earn
good point.
targets on his own volition unless he has wide open downfield or a wide open field downfield. I really don't feel good about Gabe Davis. Minnesota's defense isn't like super friendly by any means. He's a 3 target a game guy, and unless that's for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, he's essentially useless in your lineups, even in a downgraded matchup and Rondale not having his quarterback, so to speak. Um, I like him more. I just if the Cardinals have to pass, they don't really have another option outside of Nuke, so it's Rondale.
I like that. Okay, good analysis. And so Pollard and Rondell,
I mean,
let's go
Pollard's
by the name.
obvious. Pollard's had 4 career starts in his season. He's going to start this week, as far as the beats are concerned. He's had 4 career starts, and his finishes in those 4 career starts are RB1, 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 and RB2 overall. So yeah, you're starting Tony Pollard.
Good point. Good point. So yeah, there you go. I'm not gonna say the name again, but that's the answer. Now Johnny says, "Is Herbert a good player this week versus the Lions D?" The Lions
Yes,
defense is eighth in true matchup rank, so they're very soft and yeah, the answer is yes.
and soft against rushing production to running back specifically, and that's where Herbert has continued to shine ahead of Montgomery.
Oh, oh, yeah. I was thinking of the wrong Herbert, but yes.
I mean, you're starting Justin Herbert probably no matter
Yeah.
what over
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
or
Sorry.
well, I
It's my
mean,
bad. But yeah, they're still 10th in true matchup rank against the running back. So, especially with the rushing production, like you mentioned. So,
yeah.
yeah. There you go, Johnny. It's definitely a good flex play. Steve, thanks, boys. Hey, you're welcome. Hopefully it works out and have a good week. John Mueller is back. Full PPR need 2 flexes. Jeff Wilson, Kareem Hunt, Josh Palmer. All guys we've discussed already. So now it's time to put our thoughts together on what we want to do here.
Okay, so I think I have Palmer in the must start out of these 3 options.
Mm,
Not in genuine must start territory, but out of these 3 options, I think you have to roll Josh Palmer in there. That's going to give you the most upside out of these 3 guys. In a decent matchup, as you know, Cass pointed out, the 49ers defense isn't as uh,
that's tough.
stout. Yeah,
Yeah.
as stout against wide receivers as people assume. They've actually allowed over the amount of production to the position.
Yeah.
So I think Josh Palmer is the must start out of these 3 options, and I'm gonna lean to Jeff Wilson over Kareem Hunt.
All right. So you would say Palmer and Wilson, right?
Palmer and Wilson here.
So there you go. Good luck, John. And hopefully, yeah, I'm liking Palmer, honestly. But anyway, there you go. We have another one from Charles.
Now
If you had the option
this
of Fields or yeah, I was just
this
thinking
is
about it.
interesting. Justin Fields plays the Detroit Lions and just had 178 rushing yards.
Who and the Detroit Lions, who I just mentioned, are very soft on QBs. Well, like top 6 in a true matchup rank, and that
hmm
includes the second softest against Russian QBs,
hmm
which is very interesting in this scenario.
Yeah, and I mean, Mike is very down on Justin Fields and thinks he's a kind of a sellable asset. I don't disagree with that. When value peaks at this point, and you've only really seen the rushing production, which obviously can't maintain 178 yards a game. But I don't necessarily disagree with a sell on Fields and redraft. But when you have this option against a hurt Josh Allen, I'm going to go and literally what could be considered the best possible matchup for a quarterback, not just in true matchup rank, but they also allow the most passing yards and the most points per game. So I really do think that Fields has top 5 QB upside in this particular matchup, and you should take advantage of it by starting him over Josh Allen. You got your mic off, Cass.
Did it again. But yeah, I think this is one of those cases where you can sit Josh Allen because you have a suitable replacement. In this case, Fields is a very suitable replacement against a super soft Detroit Lions defense who cannot handle the run and definitely cannot handle the run by QBs. And Fields just had almost 200 yards rushing, which is insane. So I think this is one of those cases where you can say Josh. So yeah, there you go, Charles. Good luck. Hopefully, it's the right decision, and I think it is. Honestly, I truly do think it is. John says, "Thanks, guys. Hey, you're welcome. Thank you for your
Anytime, brother.
question. Keep the questions coming. By the way, if you're watching on the app and you want to ask questions, go to YouTube. If you just want to listen in the background, go to the app, and then you can close the app or like put in the background, and the video will keep playing. Unlike YouTube, the app does maintain the play and play video. If you're on Twitter, go to YouTube. Honestly, Twitter live streams are weird and it does not let us see your questions. So if you're asking questions on the Twitter live
Yeah,
stream and we're not answering, that's why. So we have to go
that's
to
why.
YouTube and we'll get to your questions. So let's take a halfway point break to get some more sleepers and busts. Because you talked already about your sleeper running back. We've discussed or just like mentioned some of your other sleepers and bust picks. But it's time for you to present your analysis. Who do you want to go with now? We
Well,
did
so
Jamal.
since we were kind of just talking about that matchup, and I'll switch to the other side of the field when talking about Jamal Williams, and I've got Chase Claypool as a pretty intriguing upside play in Week 10. Claypool was thrust into a high usage role for the Bears immediately after he landed with the franchise following his trade from the Steelers. The 30-year wideout earned 6 targets, which was 21.4% target share in his first game, even though he only played 35% of the offensive snaps. It's vastly apparent to everybody that the Bears are desperate for capable receivers. So that leaves Claypool in a really intriguing tier just based on projected volume alone. And I know Fields has yet to throw for more than 250 yards in a single game, but he's increased his passing attempts and his passing volume every single game over the last 4 weeks. And that should continue to follow the trend, especially now that he has a big bodied outside threat that can actually draw coverage off of his
Right.
secondary reads. So, like, Claypool opens up. That's why Darnell Mooney had a good game. That's why Cole Kmet had a good game. It's everything. It opens up the offense in general, just because you don't have a guy that's like, okay, we can literally just double team this dude and then ask Dante Pettis to beat us, right? Like, so now that offense actually might pass more, and they've been trending towards it without Claypool. So his Claypool snap percentages, his participation, his target share, they're going to increase. Like, they were already serviceable in a game that he only played 35% of the snaps. He's not going to play 35% of the snaps against the line. He's going to start playing 100% of the snaps with 100% route rate. And the Lions are giving up 31.4 points per game to opposing wideouts. They're dead last in passing yards and dead last in points allowed to offenses. Passing yards 427.3, points allowed to opposing offenses 29.3. And that's before that Packers, which kind of skewed that number. They were above 32 points per game to opposing offenses until Aaron Rodgers handed them 3 interceptions and allowed them to walk their way to a victory. So, I mean, cool with a even if it's not up to 100% yet, if it's somewhere around that 70% range and he had 6 targets at 35% and he sees 10 targets today against the worst defense in the NFL for passing production, I'm feeling pretty good about Chicago against Detroit in general and feeling way better about that passing game moving forward.
For sure, sure. Yeah, I get that 100%. And also, the funniest thing just happened in the Germany game with Tom Brady as a receiver. Someone else as a quarterback probably got one, and it got picked off. And it was very, very funny because Tom Brady fell down. There's a flag,
I
but
don't
it
know
was
why they
still.
keep running that Philly special with Brady, man. He's just trying to make up for that one time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not working. It's definitely not working. Anyway, we have another question from Johnny. How are we feeling about Kadarius Toney with Harmon out? I don't like it. Like, I'm gonna just say it.
No,
I don't want to start him, Tony.
I
Like,
don't
at
like
all.
it either. I mean, Hardman was out and Sky Moore didn't do anything. That's
Right.
happened. So it's like if Tony's not taking MVS's role, he's certainly not taking Juju's role. Travis Kelce's
For
going to
sure.
earn 50% of the target share. Yeah, I don't feel great about Tony.
Definitely not. So it's definitely Juju, MVS. Well, Kelsey, Juju, MVS. You're done. Stop counting. Stop looking for stuff. It's just not there. Uh, I,
Yeah.
yep, yeah, we did. Oh, and it was very very fun. Oh, it was Lenny, not Godwin, who threw that. It was very very funny. Anyway, back to Tony. I don't like even like we would have to see something from him before, because just looking at the snap counts, Tony had 9% snap percentage and 1.5 target percentage, which is just 2 targets. Oh, sorry, 2.9 target percentage. So 2 targets, which is like nothing to go on. Even though like we can pretend it's like, oh, first game, so he's not gonna be as involved as normal. But still, that does not want to make me want to start him at all. Maybe this is the game where we can see him and then make decisions afterwards. But I'm not making decisions before this game, like at all.
Right. 100% agreed. And I mean, again, moving forward too, it's just such a funneled offense. Massive things would have to change from what we've seen, which have been very consistent targets. Even even Juju in his high production role over the last 3 weeks, his 3 consecutive weeks as a wide receiver one, he's still yet to break 20% target share on the season. So, I mean, I don't think Kadarius Toney is. I mean, this is harsh, but I don't think he's the talent that we were sold on in the first place. And I certainly
I was never
think that
sold on
he,
it.
yeah, well, tried to, they tried to sell us
Yeah,
a
yeah,
false
yeah. I
bill of
get it.
goods here. You know what I mean? But with that said, like, I don't think that he's, for one, if anything were to ever positive come from Tony, it would have to be in a legitimate lead role, which he's not getting on this offense
Yeah, no,
ever.
definitely not close to that.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't feel super good about McCole Hardman either. Now that he's on my screen, but man, that guy's been producing, so I had to kind of give a little bit of shout out there. Like, been super serviceable a super serviceable flex play over the last few weeks. Yeah, Hardman coming back, I think means good things for that offense as well.
Yeah, definitely no on Kadarius Tony. Do not start him back. Like, I'm not gonna say
Probably ever.
drop him because we haven't really seen him. Like, this is the week to really make decisions on that. But he's droppable right now.
Yeah,
Like, in my opinion.
100%.
So yeah, there you go, Johnny. Hopefully this is useful and it works out. So yeah, there you go. Moving on to some more sleepers and busts. Who do you want to talk about next? I
Let's
know
get
you're
into
very
the dark
passionate about
side.
this. Okay,
Yeah,
some busts.
let's get into the dark side of it. Yeah, we got to hop onto the bus. I'll give Boyd a shout out too. We'll talk about a bit of his sleepers later. He was the one. He was high on Trevor Lawrence this week, and I'm totally with him on that. But on the dark side of things, speaking of matchups that I'm worried about, and it might be a little bit narrative based, but I'm considering benching. And I mean, I have Devin Singletary in a lot of matchups this week. Bills' offense are entering a weird and unfamiliar territory. They could be without Josh Allen, but even if he plays, I'm just worried about the overall point production, which is really the only thing that's kept Singletary above water this season is unsustainable touchdown production. Like, Singletary's coveted role as the Bills' lead back would hold much less value to me if Case Keenum is named the starting signal caller. His presence could increase Singletary's target ceiling a little bit with checkdowns, but it's going to be a neutral game script there, and any perceived increased volume with Keenum under center would be coupled with a detrimental decrease in the weighted value of said touches. So none of those surface factors instill confidence in Singletary as a must-start option for me this week, and his defensive matchup increases that doubt. The Bills face the Vikings, like we've talked about, earlier before, who allowed just 17.3 points per game combined to opposing backfields. So there's something I think that misunderstood when you're talking about points per game as well. Points per game when you see like a team averages 30 points per or allows 30 points per game to wide receivers or 24 points per game to running backs. It's not 24 points per game to the lead running back or 30 points per game to the lead wide receiver. It's 30 points per game to
Yes,
the entire unit, right? So
correct.
so that's a very good defense for running backs. And just 17.3 points per game to the entire backfield. That's 28th overall in true matchup rank, minus 16.3% for running backs and points over average. They've just consistently stuffed the position all season. And Singletary's averaged just 9.6 PPR points per game over his last 4 contests, and none of which have been against as formidable run defenses as the Vikings. I think in a bad neutral game script against a good defense and a guy that's been touchdown dependent in even breaking double-digit points over the last 4 weeks. I don't feel good about Singletary without Josh Allen there. I don't feel good about the rising usage of Naheem Hines, of James Cook. It's just one of those things where I genuinely think he's a low-end flex play moving forward, and even downgraded further in this game for me.
Okay, all of that said, we have a question from the Gridiron Greek who says, Eminem and Gordon Ramsay, big fan of the show. Thank you. Thank you. This is a side hustle. Full PPR, Devin Singletary or Paris Campbell.
Wow.
And yeah, he knew you weren't super high on Singletary this week. You just proved that by giving us the whole analysis. With all that said,
There's it's a pretty easy breakdown here, though. I'm not starting anybody on the Colts offense that isn't
yep,
named Jonathan Taylor.
yep,
Even then, he's an RB2 for me rather than an RB1. You're talking Sam Ellinger, Jeff Saturday, an offensive coordinator that got the job playing Madden. I'm just not interested. And it's not like they're getting a cupcake matchup either. So
no,
it's really one of those situations where, yeah, I'm not high on Devin Singletary by any means, but I'm way lower on everybody on that Colts offense until they
I
figure out what it means to build a winning franchise again.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Not starting anyone on the Colts, like at all. Probably the rest of the season, except
And
Jonathan
like
Taylor.
to give a little deeper analysis too, Paris Campbell's like two peak games that saw him essentially, increase his rostership to above like 70%. And everybody was really excited because he had 10 targets and then 11 targets in back-to-back games. Those were Matt Ryan's last 2 games with the Colts. There's a big difference in Sam Ellinger being the quarterback and Matt Ryan being the quarterback. As bad as Matt Ryan is, I don't care who is going to argue it. The answer is that he is a better quarterback for the NFL and for the Colts than Sam Ellinger is. But when you're trying to lose games and when you're trying to get a higher draft pick and you're doing it inside the windows of legality, then you start Sam Ellinger because, he's a second-year guy. He's young. We need to get him snaps and need to see what we have. But what that means is that everybody on the offense is now downgraded to an unplayable fantasy asset.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. So yeah,
And you
Eminem
know
and
what?
Gordon Ramsay. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I'm Gordon Ramsay here.
Of course, you're the chef.
But I'm much nicer. I'm much nicer.
Yeah, yeah. I'm clearly Slim Shady, so
I
keeping
mean,
it for a couple more weeks.
I think you look great, my friend.
Thank you, thank you.
As
Just
always, though.
trying out some new styles. Let's get back to some sleepers and busts. We already talked about Jamal Williams. You mentioned your thoughts on Devin Singletary, your thoughts on Chase Claypool. What do you want to talk about next?
Well, I mean, we'll keep it on with unplayable assets, and I think one of the most obvious benches of the week for me, at least, is Curtis Samuel, who travels with the Commanders to face the Eagles in a matchup of two division rivals who have polar opposite trajectories this season. The Eagles are the last undefeated team in the NFL. They sit atop the NFC East and NFC Conference as odds-on favorites to make a Super Bowl appearance, and the Commanders are kind of overperforming, so to speak, I guess,
Mm,
because they're 4-5, but they're last place in the NFC East, and they're certainly not going to make the playoffs. They're struggling to find an
yeah.
identity on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, although defense has certainly been serviceable and a part of the big reason why they've won 4 games in the first place. But Curtis Samuel's become a household name for the Commanders' offensive attack. He leads the team in receptions with 45, with targets at 66, and touchdowns at 3. Unfortunately, that's kind of been met by a drastic slide down the production ladder, as his early season heroics have since been met by a bunch of inconsistent performances. Prior to his Week 9 outburst last week, he hadn't finished inside of the top 24 players at the position for 7 consecutive games. So from Week 2 onward, he was a wide receiver 3. The 6-year wideout averages just 21.0% target share this season. Certainly not inductive of his points per game average. That's wide receiver 32, and 22.4% of his routes he gets targeted. So his target rate's really low as well. That's wide receiver 41. The high volume opportunities that he needs to produce are going to be really hard to come by against the Eagles. he's a yards after the catch guy. Low A dot, not even high target share, but a low A dot yards after the catch guy. And the Eagles are amongst the best defense in the league at stopping wide receiver production in general. Uh, Samuel's opponents in the Eagles, they allow 23.7, there we go, 23.7 points per game to opposing wideouts. That's 11.2% below the expected average for the position. That's ranked 28th overall in true matchup rankings. Samuel earns his opportunities, again, on a very low depth of target, needing like a big yards after the catch total to maintain production and arguably end zone work as well. And the Eagles defense ranks 10th overall in yards after the catch allowed per reception. So they every single catch they only allow under 5 yards per catch after the reception. So I'm not overly confident in a team that is one really, really good at stopping receivers that are specifically Curtis Samuel's skill set, stopping yak receivers, putting pressure on a guy like Taylor Heineke in a poor offensive line, getting in his face. And the Eagles just keep adding depth and getting guys healthy too. The secondary is going to be a really bad matchup. And if they see Curtis Samuel as the wide receiver one there, Slay will probably shadow Terry McLaurin the entire game. But that just means that CJ Gardner-Johnson is going to be in Samuel's face as the nickel corner on top of him for every single snap. And honestly, that's not much of a better matchup than Darius Slay.
That you don't need any more than that. So that's the full analysis. We have another question, so we can take a break from sleepers and busts. Trey asks, full PPR, Judy or Josh Palmer? We haven't discussed Judy. We have talked about Josh Palmer a bit. I think I know what I want to do here. I just want to see what you are thinking.
Um, I'm thinking Josh Palmer. I'm thinking Josh Palmer. I'm not downgrading Judy as much as the other
Yeah,
options on Denver. Just in general, that's kind of a rest of the season outlook. But I, again, this is definitely a ceiling play. Jerry Judy he's souped up Curtis Samuel. Jerry Judy's a phenomenal route runner. Uh, good after the catch. And I guess Samuel doesn't have the route running prowess, but a low A dot guy, good after the catch. And Denver just hasn't been able to push the ball deep downfield anyway. So I think that role is kind of molded even more into that stereotype. That said, Josh Palmer, knowing that he's at least in a better matchup. Again, as Cass pointed out, the 49ers are not as tough against the wide receiver as assumed.
not super tough.
They
No,
yeah, they are a exploitable matchup, and we do think that Justin Herbert obviously is better than Russell Wilson and has a bit of a better chance of supporting a wide receiver one in any given week. Yeah, uh, Denver's matchup is against Tennessee Titans, a good defense, a little bit of a weaker secondary, sure, but I mean that also has the lowest over under total of the entire week, 39.5 points. The Titans are
mm,
favored. It's going to be, you're going to be lucky to see 39 points on that scoreboard combined between the two teams. And so when we're going both kind of in perceived bad matchups, but one with a much lower scoring perceived total and a kind of, you could argue, equal receiver talent, at least with their roles. And the way that Denver has produced, Josh Palmer's been putting up equal numbers to Jerry Judy. So yeah, from a fantasy perspective, equal talent options. I like Josh Palmer here a little bit more.
I agree. I agree for sure. Also, like we've been saying, San Francisco is not as tough. It's not only that they're not as tough as a points per game would lead you to believe, is that they're actually a good matchup for their
Right.
wide receivers. Like they're legitimately good, almost top five in points per game. I'm sorry, in points over average. So that's one of those great use cases for points over average. Don't look at points per game. Look at the points over average, and you'll see that San Francisco is actually a much softer matchup than the points per game will lead you to believe. That's why I'm much higher than on Palmer than other people.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that points over average is such a strong tool for, and that I was kind of speaking about a little bit before, but such a strong tool for island positions like quarterback and tight end, because
Oh right, yeah.
where the points are funneled through one person. And again, it's like the 49ers have if they're the Titans, if the 49ers and the Titans were equal, so to speak, but the reason that the 49ers points over average is higher is that the Titans would have allowed those points per game to top receivers like Cooper Cup, like, a Tyreek Hill, and they kept them under their expected average. Whereas the 49ers are allowing like some bum receivers to have big games against them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we have a very interesting question coming up. Well, first we have Boyd coming into the chat. A couple stallions. Thank you, sir. He was
Hook us
very
up with the
active
start.
last week.
The start sits, Boyd. What do you got on the dynasty side?
Then we have a question from HFC: Tua or Fields? And I've been I've been vocal about not being a Fields fan in the past and liking Tua, especially like you remember in the off season we did an episode and I
Oh
was
yeah, well,
very
we
very
were
high
both
on Tua.
very
Yeah, we
high
were
on
both
Tua.
very high on Tua. Tim was not. We were, and I've been very high on Tua for a while. However, this week, Fields against the Lions is just like I cannot look that over like because they're both positive in both passing and rushing points over average to quarterbacks, and especially the rushing part is what I'm interested in because we already saw what Fields can do, and the Detroit Lions cannot stop the run at all. So I think it's Fields for me out of these two.
I agree. I agree. It's you're talking about such similar or such polar opposite rather player profiles, but with such similar like Tua's ceiling has been very incredible, but it's not the same ceiling that Justin Fields has, and it comes from a different method of production, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Cleveland
Yeah.
Browns secondary is certainly susceptible, but they're not as susceptible as the Lions defense in general. And Fields over the last 6 weeks is the QB1 in fantasy football in points per game average. So, I mean, I don't know where you can sit Fields in any matchup this week. Again, I think he has top 5, top 3 potential. There's in the players that I do have a rank ahead of him, the points per game differential is very minimal. So yeah, I genuinely think Fields is a smash option this week and a must start moving forward. And if you're holding on to both of those guys and trade deadline hasn't passed yet, I would look to trade away to a Tagovailoa.
Wow. Strong words from the man. I
Yep.
have a well. First of all, you know what's annoying? That now Lenny Fournette is gonna have negative interception points because of that stupid ass play
Yep.
that they ran. So
It's
yeah,
low
that's
key
annoying.
Rashad White season, but Rashad's just stuck behind a terrible offensive line and can't do anything with it.
Yeah, yeah. And
Oh,
now I have a
Josh Allen
question for you.
is active. There it
Josh
is.
Allen is active,
Officially
and
active.
so is Ryan Tannehill as well, officially official. Uh, I have a start set question for you.
All right.
Naheem Hines or Melvin Gordon?
Melgo.
My go, full go.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I genuinely think that Naheem Hines was okay. So a bit of a narrative thing too, but I think Naheem Hines was not traded for to be a running back for Buffalo. They don't have a punt returner, and they're making a playoff run. That's genuinely what I like. Like they do not
That's a good
want
point.
Khalil Shakir back because he's already muffed 2 this season. They don't want Shakir back there muffing punts in the playoffs.
That is
And
a good
I
point.
know it was his first game, but Naheem Hines literally played 1 snap. Played 1
Hmm.
snap.
Well,
Like I
you
know
you
it
could
was his
chalk that
first
to being
game.
like first game. Yeah,
I know. But every other player, literally every
Hmm.
single
Hmm.
other player that got traded on the trade deadline played a lot more than 1 snap and was
Yeah, yeah,
immediately
they did.
inserted into their offenses. Now I know also he's not a TJ Hawkinson's a starting tight end, arguably a top 10 tight end in the league. Chase Claypool immediately becomes the best wide receiver on Chicago. And, so I understand there were obviously different scenarios where they didn't necessarily need him. But again, I do genuinely think that there's a bit of a misperception of the reasoning that they traded for him. It's not to be the pass catching back. It's not to be the third down guy. I do think he'll find some of that work, but I don't think that's really the role that they're asking him to define for them.
Hmm.
And that said, I think we were talking about kind of that backfield earlier. The pass catching work will go to Melgo. He's still got, a committee share of the rushing work as well, even with Murray ahead of him in the rushing volume department. But I like him more than Hines, just on floor alone, and I do think his ceiling is higher as well.
Well, you've convinced me. I honestly had Heinz in just as a optimistic vintage usage Heinz. I
I
would
would
love to
love
have
to
that.
see that.
Yeah, but
I just don't
like
think
you
it's
just sold me on
necessarily
it. Yeah,
there.
it's not gonna be as likely, right? Or possible just in general. Anyway, one more from yours truly. It's a Jones question. So Zay Jones or Donovan Peoples Jones for the
Ooh,
flex.
I see that. That's an interesting one. I I think DPJ. I think DPJ this
Mm.
week.
Yeah, I was leaning DPJ as well. Honestly, I like the
Yeah,
matchup against Miami.
yeah, me too. Yeah. So I like the matchup that Miami secondary is broke down. I also there's a bit of a Tim was kind of selling me on this one, but there's a bit of a like you can't really call it revenge narrative, but fire narrative. Miami's going to be able to put up points for sure, right? And
Mm.
Jacoby Brissett is this might be his last game in the NFL as a starting quarterback. So I mean that
That's
kid
that's
if
that's
that
a
kid
good
wants a
point.
contract anywhere, this
He
is the
needs to ball
game where
out.
he 100%, 100%. So definitely a little bit of a narrative base there, but we like those narratives sometimes when you can light a fire under a guy and kind of know that he's going to play a little with obvious like literally his NFL career on the line. He's got to ball out and prove to somebody that he can at least be a serviceable backup for them and
But
get a new
yeah,
contract because contract's done at the end of the season and there's so many like I think there's a misconception too of like serviceable backups. You're just start like look, a Cooper Rush is a starting quarterback on most teams. A guy like Davis Mills probably
is
won't
he
have
though?
a yes. You don't think Cooper Rush is better than Davis Mills, PJ Walker, Baker Mayfield? Like look at some of the quarterbacks that are consistently starting games in the NFL.
Yeah, but like he's not a starting quarterback for most NFL teams. Like he's a low end starting quarterback at best. That's
For okay, maybe most was a stretch, but point being is that I do genuinely think that Jacoby Brissett is playing for his NFL life here.
mm, that's a very good point. That's a very interesting point. I like that. I like narratives like that. See, uh, so against the Miami defense, what better way?
Exactly. I mean that secondary broke down, man. It's getting worse. So I mean, obviously injuries are piling up and stuff. They still have Holland, but yeah, Miami's biggest hole in their entire run to being quote unquote Super Bowl contenders or even deep playoff contenders is that teams can just do what they want to that defense.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point. Let's take another break to talk about probably our last sleeper bust break. Who do you have for me?
Well, we're gonna shout out the boy himself, Boyd, and one of his. We're gonna stay on a little bit of the darker side because we talked about the upside with Trevor Lawrence here, but
Yeah.
it's Aaron Rodgers. Unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers is looking like a shell of his former self, reminiscent almost of Big Ben's drop off in his final years. I mean,
Yeah.
it's obviously not as bad as far as the arm strength is concerned, and yes, there's a lot of issues when it comes to the weapons that he's throwing to. He doesn't really have any capable weapons. Alan Lazard being the top option, who has been mostly just a role player throughout his entire career and is now asked to do much more. And Alan Lazard is doing a fine job with that, but the lack of depth around him, and obviously the Packers offense in general, that offensive line being banged up has affected Rodgers greatly. He threw 3 interceptions against the worst defense in the NFL. The literal worst passing
Yeah.
defense in the
Yeah.
NFL.
That's
Rodgers
not good.
gifted them 3 interceptions in a win. The last time he threw 3 interceptions was 5 seasons ago. That was week 15 of 2017, and then he's never done it again in his entire career.
Yeah.
Like that's it. 2 games, and he's already thrown for more interceptions in 9 games. He's got 7 than he threw in any season since 2016. He's thrown more interceptions in 9 games than he has for the last 6 seasons. He's like Packers fans are obviously in shambles and for good reason. He's averaging
Yeah.
14.7 points per game. That marks the lowest average of any season of his Hall of Fame career, dating back to the first season he ever started for the Packers, which honestly is certainly very concerning. He's not that. spry 25-year-old man anymore. But if you look back at that receiving core in his first few seasons, that there was no Devontae Adams. There was no, it was Jordy Nelson was there. Yeah, he had some Randall Cobb, but it was kind of a makeshift receiving core of again role playing talent, and he did well with them, and he's not doing that anymore. And obviously, playing a major factor in his production and his just his mental outlook. Now, worst part of it all is he heads to face the Cowboys in Week 10, who have the one of the scariest defenses in the NFL and have been eating quarterbacks alive all season. They sit 29th overall in true matchup ranks, so the third or fourth worst possible matchup for quarterbacks, allowing minus 29.7% points over average and a stifling 12.9 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. I mean, a negative differential in a guy that's already at just
Yeah.
14.7 points per game. It's an obvious start, but people are holding on to Rodgers' hope, the same way that they're holding on to Brady hope. I think Brady is certainly someone to invest a little bit more in because at least the numbers have been there. Like his accuracy is good. He's second in the league in yards. The touchdowns just haven't
Hmm.
been there like years past. Brady's just not scoring. He's putting up numbers though. Rodgers isn't doing either.
Yeah, it's been ugly for sure. And
It's
it's
tough going,
yeah,
man. It's
yeah.
tough going.
No,
And I
not a
mean,
good
it's
time to
it's
be a Packers fan.
this is something that I've written about extensively, both for Brodo and on Twitter and everything. Just about the age apex that we're meeting, and part of the reason as a dynasty analyst, it's not just the talent of the 2023 class that people are obsessed with, and why these 2023 first round picks mean so much and have so much value. It's not just the talent of the prospects that are coming in; it's the age apex that is happening in the NFL. There are so many players that need to be replaced, both in real life and from a fantasy perspective. Alvin Kamara is turning to like an infinite amount of running backs, right? Hence the upgrade of running back talent in this upcoming class.
Yeah,
Alvin Kamara turning 28, Derrick Henry turning 28, Saquon Barkley turning 26, CMC turning 28. All of it. Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon 27, like all of these, and then look
yeah,
the
yeah,
top end quarterbacks that have been staples in top 12 rankings and top 12 points per game, like Matt Stafford. Obviously, Kirk Cousins just barely being there, but even a guy like Ryan Tannehill, who's been top 12 for the last 3 seasons, Tom
oh yeah,
Brady, Aaron Rodgers, right? So now there's quarterbacks that need to be replaced. And you're looking at the same thing happening in the wide receiver room. Keenan Allen may be playing his last season in the NFL. Like these are things that we saw happen to Julio Jones, where a hamstring injury just derails an entire career because you're 30 years old and now you've missed out an entire season that's kept your body in the shape that needed to be to perform that way the next season, right? So like all of those things are coming into you know a peak point where it's both. It's both of why the picks are so valuable. It's not just the players, but it's where the age apex is coming. So I wanted to wrap that up with
hmm.
it's very interesting time in the NFL. A lot of these guys are there really is a major changing of the guard, and we kind of started to see it a little bit throughout the previous years. Obviously, guys like Chase blowing up, guys like Jefferson blowing up, Herbert and Burrow having great rookie seasons, which are historically unheard of. We've seen a changing of the guard, so to speak, but there's going to be a forced one. All of these guys are coming towards the end of their career, and it's looking like they are not capable of keeping this up.
Yeah, yeah. It does feel like a generation change right now because we're
100%.
like if it wasn't for Brady being obsessed or whatnot, we would have seen this a long time ago. Like the last of the previous generation, the generation I started with. So for me, it would have been well. We already kind of saw that, like the normal generation dying out, like with Big Ben, Rivers, the Mannings,
Right,
all
right.
of that. Now we only have really from that generation is just Rogers and Brady left, right?
I
So
do kind of put Stafford in that, like, kind of
true,
in that
true.
because he was this is his what 15th year in the league,
No, is he? Is he that
right?
old?
Stafford's
No.
36, bro. Yeah, he only played 3 years at
Wow.
Georgia. Yeah, like
No, he's
I
34. He's
okay,
2009
okay. I literally thought
draft class.
2007, so that's where I was. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Fair,
it's a
but
2 year
still,
difference.
like
Still
it's
over
still a
10
whole
years, right?
generation
So
of talent
yeah,
is kind of my point making. Yeah,
yeah,
but
for
again,
sure.
yeah, it is, and you have seen that start to happen. So it's only going to continue to compound and continue to devalue these older age guys, both in redraft and dynasty, which is obviously where a lot of my perspective comes from.
For sure, for sure. I get that. I get that, and I'm excited for the future of the NFL. Honestly,
Me
it's
as
very
well.
exciting.
Yeah.
We have 10 minutes left on the show, so any questions that come in, we will answer because that is a crunch time guarantee. If you have any last second questions, we will get to those. If not, we'll happy week 10. Hopefully it's a good week for all of us, and this is the make or break weeks, the crunch time weeks, where you need to get those wins to secure a playoff spot, and it's huge. It's huge. I've noticed in some leagues where I'm not necessarily locked into the playoffs, where these are the start sit decisions that matter at the end of of the
100%.
season.
100%. Yeah, I mean, this is crunch time. This is crunch time. This is where the show gets its namesake. Every start decision matters. Every point matters now. I mean, every point matters all season, but this is really where it gets to, boom or break point. And I know I've got some 6-3, some 5-4 rosters that
Yeah, those are
are
the
right
dangerous
on the
ones.
precipice, and yeah, exactly. And man, it's tough going in those. It's tough going in those streets this year. A lot of teams that are high in points for, but just can't get the record straight. So we're hoping to obviously turn those around to close out the season. As long as I can make the playoffs, just need to. I've always said this too in fantasy is like one. You just need to make the dance, and then you can let variance take over. You got to manage your way to make the dance. Like
Yeah,
good managers can
yeah,
make the playoffs, kind of regardless of their draft, so to speak. But once you make the dance, then it's just set it and forget it and hope for the best.
yeah. Like I've seen a phrase going around, like it's skill to make the playoffs, and then it's luck to win the playoffs. That was sorry to win the
100%.
championship.
I love that saying. Yeah, yeah. That's good.
So yeah,
Oh,
that
we
is
got
fantasy.
we got
Yeah, we got
a
one. We
sneaky
got one.
last one coming in.
Do I drop Higby for Cole Komet this morning? Full PPR.
I mean, man, I'm pretty low on Cole Komet. So, taking my L there, a guy that Mike and I kind of argued about because I'm a big target share guy, which is what led me to the victory that I got over Mike with Jacoby Myers. But I'm a big target share guy, and I like guys that get peppered with targets. But Cole Kmet has seen a drastic decrease in target share from last season to this season, and it's affected his points per game heavily. He's not going to score 2 touchdowns every game. It's just not going to
No,
happen.
he's not.
With that said, against the Lions in a phenomenal matchup for essentially every position. I'm not like Komet is a streaming option for me this week. I genuinely do see the upside, and until the Rams want to stop using Tyler Higbee as a left tackle, which isn't going to happen because their left tackle's not coming back. It was a season-ending injury. You can look at as soon as the left tackle went down. It's one of the more interesting graphs. As soon as the Rams left tackle got hurt, you can just watch Higbee's snap percentages like spike and his route percentages and targets decline. They're putting him out on the field even more than they were when they were giving him 10 targets a game, and he's getting 2 targets a game. It's just see the same thing happening with George Kittle. It's kind of one of those narratives that fantasy overlooks, but good tight ends can get a lot of field time because they're great blockers as well. And Cole Kmet just isn't in a receiving role right now, or Tyler Higbee rather.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, dropping is where things get rough. I would almost like to know if there were other options, but would I start him over Higbee this week? Yes.
There you go. That's your answer there as well. I mean, especially like with tight ends, I feel like dropping is not that like drastic.
It's
I
not.
drop
No.
tight ends all the time, unless you have one of the top three guys. You don't drop those, but other than that, I think you can easily drop uh, guys like Higby and Komet, and
Yeah.
they don't like
Yeah. You
you
can just
don't
keep
need them on
rolling
your
them,
roster.
streaming them. No,
They're
you're
not
right.
gonna
100%.
change the rest of your season. For the most part, I'm sure there are some edge cases where you drop
100%.
a tight end and it turns out he's just an absolute god and messes up your with your entire season. other than those edge cases, I think you can safely drop any other tight end. So
Yeah.
I'm
And
okay with
full
dropping
disclosure,
Higby.
because we were just talking about dynasty, I was yeah, you can definitely drop Tyler Higbee for Komet in redraft if you need a streamer. I was like, drop's a little rough. I wouldn't drop a starting tight end, but yeah, in redraft, there's certainly and you could drop Komet next week. Like that's
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. That
you're
that's
streaming tight ends already if
yeah.
Higbee's your starter.
You're streaming tight ends. You're streaming. As the same goes with DSTs. You get to keep and try to keep the top three, maybe top four. Not even top three. The rest you can just drop. Like they vary so much week to week. Same as tight ends, and they don't really hold any like consistent value. So unless you
Right.
have
Well,
one of the
actually, I
tops, absolute tops,
top
you can stream.
2 or 3. I tweeted this
Yeah, two or
earlier.
three. I agree.
The tight end position's so essentially useless in fantasy that, and technically it's 7, but Taysom Hill's not a tight end. That Travis Kelsey has doubled the scoring production of 6 of the top 12 tight ends. 7 if you count Taysom. Doubled. Taysom Hill is tight end 6 with 82.9 fantasy points, and Travis Kelsey has 166. Like that's how ridiculous that position is. You can stream anybody. Like you just need a warm body that catches a touchdown. Otherwise, like you need Travis Kelsey or Mark Andrews.
We have the final crunch time question for this week, courtesy of John Mueller, and it's a doozy. Superflex question: need immense ceiling this week. Start three. Do I start Josh Allen and Justin Herbert and roll out Mooney or Sutton in the flex, or do I roll out one QB and start Mooney and Sutton with in
Start
Emergency
both
flex?
QBs.
Yeah, I would agree with that
Definitely
as well.
immense ceiling. Start both QBs. 100%. And we're talking about ceiling. We're talking about immense ceiling.
Yeah, immense.
It's Mooney.
Is it?
It's both QBs and Mooney. Yeah, it's Detroit, man. It's Detroit. It's
It's
Mooney is a
Tennessee. Tennessee is, I think, number one in points. No, it's not number one. They're not number one, but like they're up there in points
Falcons are
against wide
number 1.
receivers. Right. Yeah. 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 But Tennessee is number two with plus 33.4%. Detroit is a very soft defense, but they're only plus 5% when it comes to wide receivers.
This is why we use points over average.
Uh, my Wi-Fi just died for a second. Can you hear
You're
me?
still here. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Something's weird. But anyway, I was just saying, Detroit's only plus 5% in points over average to wide receivers, while Tennessee is uh, over like 30%. So you're talking about immense ceiling. Playing against the Titans gives you immense ceiling.
Yep, I'm feeling you on that one too. I mean, there's such similar options, Mooney and Sutton. They're boomer bust guys, right? Like, um, and I mean, you can lower Allen's ceiling, but he still has a higher ceiling than Sutton or Mooney,
Right.
which is kind of
Absolutely.
what you're
Absolutely.
considering there, right? And again, the narrative to that for me, the positive narrative, because let's go silver lining, is that if he's not throwing the ball but wants to remain productive, he will have to rush, which just increases his fantasy ceiling.
Right. Right. Uh, but yeah. So immense ceiling, definitely two QBs, and I'm personally voting for Sutton here.
Sutton, I'm with you on it. Yeah, I'm with you on it. This is why we use points over average. If they
Points
average
over
similar points per
average.
game, which they do, then you go with the team that average is so much more to the matchup.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So
I agree.
it's just a huge difference, because it's close to 30 points, but 30% versus 5%. Because,
Yeah,
but yeah.
that's a huge bump.
So there you go, John. Good luck this week, and that just about wraps up this week's edition of Crunch Time Live. Not 10 minutes, 10 minutes left. We are done. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Crunch Time. Thank you for being my co-host, Matt. Much
Oh man,
appreciated.
I love it.
Great
I'm so
debate.
happy to be back.
Oh yeah, it's been a while since it's just you and me. But
The original
yeah,
duo.
the originals. Uh, Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And we just got a comment. Great breakdown, guys. Appreciate you. Hey,
Oh,
we appreciate
appreciate
your
you, brother.
questions. Thank you for tuning in. And we will see you probably next week. So see ya. Oh, and have a good week. Good luck.